Hello, and welcome to the TrailManners podcast. I'm your host, Eric Manning, coming to you from the beautiful trails in Ogden, Utah, but connecting you to wherever trail, ultra, and mountain running takes us. We'll bring trail running to life with amazing athletes, discuss the latest topics, epic journeys, and get you stoked for your next trail adventure. We're sharing the moments that make life special, because even a rough day on the trail beats a good day indoors, and nothing beats time spent with good friends and great stories. Catch us here weekly for your dose of dirt, vert, and good vibes. So now it's time to top off your water, grab some cheese curds, and join us for this week's podcast, where we take you deep into the heart of our sport. It's go time. Hello and welcome to episode number 332 of the TrailManners podcast. The TrailManners podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at TrailManners, and don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate us on iTunes. TrailManners would really appreciate any donations via our website at trailmanners.com, and please remember to share us with your friends. All links from the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, again, welcome back to the TrailManners podcast. I am your host, Eric W. Manning. The launch date today, October the 15th, 2024. And do you know what October 15th is, folks? It is National Cheese Curd Day. So I hope if you're listening to this on 10/15, grab some cheese curds, because it's National Cheese Curd Day. So super excited. Why not break out the new season of the TrailManners podcast on National Cheese Curd Day? And why not kick off another season of the TrailManners podcast by bringing in our first guest? We've got like 5 or 6 lined up, but right now, we're kicking it off. Just celebrated her 2-year wedding anniversary to the hunk of love in her life. I'm bringing in Sarah Manning. Sarah, how are you?
Well, I'm good. Thank you for that. And happy anniversary to you also.
Thank you.
What am I? If you're a hunk of love, what am I?
You're not a hunk, because I'm just like a hunk of something. This is my podcast. I'll ask the questions, so let's keep to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're back, and as we start all our podcasts here at the TrailManners podcast, I'm doing Beer of the Week. So this Beer of the Week is a newer one for me, just in the past few months, I'm going to say. It is from Lone Pine Brewing in Portland, Maine. It is a double IPA, a double IPA, and it's OH hyphen the letter J, OJ. 8.1%. It's fresh squeezed American hops packed into a pure citrus juice box. We like to call this the beer mosa, because it's kind of like a mimosa, but a beer, right? So I'm going to crack that right now. Are you ready to hear this one? Hope you heard that one. So yeah, we'll be having some. I recommend this one highly. This is a fantastic drink. Comes in a big tall pint of love. You're gonna like that one, folks, if you can get your hands on it. Super tasty. Sarah, you even like this one, right?
I do like that one.
And that's kind of rare for us to really like. You like double IPAs?
Yes.
An IPA guy. So sometimes we don't have that same one, and you've got one in front of you. Do you want to talk about it now, or should we wait?
Oh, it's up to you. This is your podcast.
I like how you did that there.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce your beer, because it's going to come in later in the podcast. What do you got today?
I have got from Pipeworks the Ninja versus Unicorn. It's a double IPA also.
And this is your go-to. This is your, after a big run or race, this is the first thing you think about.
This is my do hard things beer, because it's a Ninja versus Unicorn. It's tasty, and the can really just conveys everything you may have just gone through.
It's pretty glorious, actually. Yeah, it's pretty glorious. So yeah, that's the beer of the week on my side, the Lone Pine OJ. Hopefully we can get our hand on another brew out there, Lumberbeard out of Spokane, folks. If you can get your hands on anything lumber beer related, you're going to love it. So hopefully we can get our hands on some of that. But let's go ahead and kick off the podcast. So you just recently got back from a 100-mile race. The IMTUF, IMTUF, 100-miler. How many hundreds is that for you when you finished IMTUF?
I have now finished 7.
Finished 7. So this was your 7th, lucky 7. And just I'm going to clear something up to the listeners out there. Trail running, when you do a 100-mile race, they're called hundreds.
They round.
Or 100, right?
Oh, I see what you're doing here.
They're not hundos, folks. So we'll get that one out in the open now. Trail running 100 milers are hundreds or 100. I don't even care if you say 100. I don't care if you spell it out word by word. They're not hundos. And that's something we'll keep relaying to the people in the trail community. So, all right. So you got back from your 700-mile race, the IMTUF 100. Fantastic finish. I was fortunate enough to be there, kind of witness certain sections of that. This was the Supercourse. Can you explain to our listeners that aren't familiar, because not all races have multiples, what's the IMTUF Supercourse?
Well, they are very vague in their descriptions online, but my understanding is on even years, so every other year, it's the Supercourse, and you get to run about an extra 4 to 6 miles. So...
And you don't pay extra.
No, you get more bang for your buck.
and online they say it's 100+ miles and 22,000 feet of gain.
Right.
And I think your Strava was like 106
20,000.
and 20 to 21.
Yeah.
So right in there. So we all know that GPS watches aren't always 100% accurate. So we're going to go with 100+ miles on their website and 22,000 feet of gain.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go with 106 miles.
Yeah, 100+. 106 sounds good because 100+ could be 101, right? It's a loop course. It's got a fantastic start and finish at the Jug Mountain Ranch. The race is in McCall, Idaho, which is gorgeous. So that's a great place. It's in the Salmon River Mountains. It is a hard rock qualifier. And the other nice thing about it is they've got a 20-mile option. I actually ran into a couple people that one of the partners was running one, like the 100-miler, and the other one was running the 20 while they were there. I thought that was a fantastic idea.
That's cool.
So it's a really cool idea. So why was IMTUF with September? It's a September race, kind of like mid to late September is on the 20th, with all the hundreds, all the hundos out there. Mm-hmm. Why IMTUF?
I've known a few people that have done it, and they have talked about how this is their favorite race. It's just the most beautiful from start to finish. It's remote and it's rugged. And one of the things that was actually a little appealing to me was I didn't really know anybody else running it, because sometimes for me I get swept in up in the who all is running the same race as you, and then comparison
like game. People you know or you run with,
and then you start comparing yourself to what they're doing, and it was just kind of nice to just be out there on my own.
Nice. So IMTUF, actually it's IMTUF, Idaho Mountain Trail Ultra Festival. Right. So that's kind of what it stands for. The site also says, and I'm going to ask you this because you are qualified to answer it. It says people compare it to the Wasatch 100 in difficulty, but this one is more technical. Mm-hmm. Is that how you kind of feel? I think
this one is harder because I would say for me anyway, because there was a lot more climbing on that back half than there is at Wasatch. So that was definitely something I had to plan and think about. The course itself, I would say they're both pretty equally technical, but different in that Wasatch is, for me anyway, in my style of running, it's less runnable. IMTUF. Everything on the ground was stuck to the ground. It wasn't the slippery downhills where you're sliding down the hills. So for me, it was harder because of the climbing and the elevation that was more spread out. There was so much at the end, and but it was more runnable in my opinion.
Because Wasatch on their site, they're 100 miles and about 24,000 feet. So if we're just going by those two, you're 2,000 feet more of climbing in Wasatch.
Right.
It is funny though. When I was at one of the aid stations, I was talking to another runner who came in mm-hmm. and who's done Hard Rock 10 times, Wasatch 10 times, and it was, I can't remember the climb. You'd remember because it was a never-ending climb when I saw you, like 7 a.m., so mile 80-something maybe. And he was like, that was so hard. And this he'd done Wasatch 10 times, and after that climb, he's like, that was so hard. It never ended.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember all of the different miles, but yeah, at about mile 81, sorry, I still have losing my voice from the race. At about mile 81, you have, I don't know, around a 3,500 foot climb, and it was never ending. It was spread over like 6 miles, which actually at that point in the game, it goes on forever. I was ready to be done with that one.
I could see why, and that's what I heard. So another interesting thing there was a young couple that I had the fortune of meeting from Bellingham, and of course me and you have some ties with Bellingham, so it was a fun conversation. And this couple had come down in the summer to do some recon on the course. It was his first 100-mile race, and he finished, and he did really well. But it was funny. He came in and he told his partner, he's like, honey, remember how we came out this summer and did that downhill? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, that wasn't bad, but on tired legs, that sucked. And I just started laughing because I could imagine if you come in and you're saying, oh, I'm going to run this 20-mile stretch for recon, you're fresh, right? So it was just kind of funny, all tongue in cheek. And I think the other great thing is he looked at it and he's like, man, that was dark. And she's like, oh, well, the sun's out now. And he's like, no, I was in a dark place.
We all go there.
But it was funny because it kind of epitomized in a way those 100-mile feels, right? Because I think you were at Lake Fork Trailhead, and so I hadn't seen you for almost 13 miles from Snowslide, and that was like 7 a.m. in that timeline. So
well, and then that one whenever Sarah picked me up at 72 miles, and it's a straight up climb. And she's looking around on her fresh, happy legs, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful! Look around." And I didn't feel that same way. So,
difference of opinion,
perspective.
But what stood out for the event? The course, the markings, aid stations. I mean, what are some of the things you take away? Because since that race and during that race, you've really promoted this race. Really,
right.
You're like, oh my gosh! So
it is incredible from beginning to end. There's not a single section that the views or where you're at isn't just absolutely beautiful. You're up in the trees, you're on the crest line, there's lakes on either side. Like I said, for me, it was really runnable. They had goats at one aid station, so that's always a perk for me.
And when she means goats, it's not mountain goats. They were like pet goats hanging out.
Yeah, they were goats. Large pack animals. And, the temperature is another one.
Yeah, that's Barrett.
We have our other guests. Hello. There's somebody. Hey, buddy. Come here.
That's Barrett saying hello.
The temperatures in September were absolutely phenomenal, and because the races here were 85, 90 degrees.
Yeah, that's pretty warm. And even though it was warm though, like the morning, it was pretty cold through the early, not like at night maybe, but early morning and.
It was incredibly cold. Through the night, the temperatures dropped, but right before the sun came up and that point on the course, we're down, between like in a valley, and it always drops. I think Sarah said it was probably about 25, 26 degrees.
Wow.
So, and I've never ran in a puffy jacket before, and I had my puffy on. One of my pacers, Sarah, normally is in shorts like I am all year long, and I've never seen her with more layers on. So it was really cold.
And I think coming from this extreme heat we've had, it's like the never-ending summer. That takes its toll on you. And then I know at some points in the race, even though it wasn't like heat, like we're saying like West Coast and some of the hot area during the summer, you're exposed on the ridgeline still, and it's just hot.
Right. Yeah. Well, that morning when it was very cold, that climb we were just talking about, as soon as the sun came up, we went from puffy coats to tank tops within like 10 minutes. Yeah. And you're exposed, and it did get really warm that day.
What about the event? The course was marked fantastic.
We had they do a wonderful job of marking the course. The mile markers were a little off, but the course, you will not get lost on that course.
And aid stations seemed pretty spot on.
They were phenomenal. Everyone was great. They were spot on. Yeah, all the volunteers, all these races are always phenomenal, but there were a couple that really always stood out.
And I've had the fortune of crewing a lot of races in my day. But this one, it was particularly nice. We stayed right in McCall, and I think the furthest aid station was maybe a 45-minute drive. And it's only because some of it was like dirt road. It wasn't like, I don't know, less than 20 miles back and forth. So as a crew, there's a couple aid stations that are like 15 minutes from town, and then you come back. Super fun to crew. And the same thing, I'm sitting at a lake waiting for you to come in. I mean, you cannot beat crewing this race. And when they say that you can have your crew there, it's not like you need a 4x4 with this and it's super sketchy. I mean, it's such a neat race. And I'd been there 10 plus years ago with someone else running, but they've changed the course a little bit over the years. But it's obviously 10 years, a lot changes. But yeah, it was fantastic. And you seemed like you had a great time.
I did. I would do it again.
What foods do you eat? You hit the aid stations. Kind of what did you eat throughout the race?
Yeah, I think I realized this race, I've noticed a pattern. I need to eat real food for like the first half of the race, but once I hit about halfway through, I don't want to eat any food. So I ate quite a bit of peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and honey sandwiches, Uncrustables, if you will. I'm pretty basic. I'll eat a quesadilla. If they have quesadillas, grilled cheese tasted really good in the middle of the night. But then other than that, it was martingales, tailwind, and trying just to keep those in rotation. So
do you have a go-to when you hit an aid station, like you're always looking for, or is it kind of depend on if it's hot or cold out, and depends on where you're at in the race? Because you've never really had like stomach issues.
No, I fortunately have not. I always look for peanut butter and jelly, or bananas and oranges, or quesadillas. That's kind of my go-to. At night, the broth, especially if they have vegetarian broth.
Yeah, and I'll mention that. I mean, you are a vegetarian, so it's not like you come through and you're looking for the bacon, and which I would gladly take for you. But it was nice that they had vegetarian broth, because if you're not a vegetarian, I mean, what's the difference, right?
The grilled cheese really hit home in the middle of the night on this one. So
because they had like pancakes. I mean, I mean, again, where I had the opportunity to be at some of the aid stations a little bit more, and I can't remember which one it was. It was at a big lake, or late night. They had like a like a TV going when you left the aid station. It was like a backyard movie theater going with a movie playing, which I thought was kind of cool. It would keep me there, though. That's the problem. What's your drop bag strategy at races generally?
Yeah, I typically, weirdly, I always have drop bags where I will have crew. I've usually had crew at all of the.
You had a fantastic crew.
I had
at this race.
Wonderful crew at this race.
And
phenomenal. Pacers. But I have my drop bags packed with what I know I'll need, and I put that in a Ziploc, and those are I know I'm going to need these, and then another bag with I might want these, and those are in the drop bag, but I send them with the race in case my crew happens to get a flat tire or something. At least my stuff will be there. Yeah. And then I also have just a bag that my crew has full of anything I might possibly want. So
random stuff.
Random things. Sparkling water has been a go-to for me the last several events I've done.
So overall for the race, how did it play out for you? Like, how did it go down? Was there it's a 100-mile race. Like, when you say low spots, that's different for everybody, but we'll get to how you felt after the race, but like throughout the race, I mean, how did it kind of play out from the early start to the finish the next day?
Well, I can even start with before the race. I was a little in my head, I'm not going to lie, from last year. The Bear, that's the first race I haven't finished. And so that was kind of it. That was in my head, can you actually do this again? But you always make me the cards that show me, that I carry with me, that have the miles to each aid station with the ascent and descent. And usually we put projected times on there. And I just told you to put the cutoff times on this one. I went into this knowing that I can do it, and I just need to finish it. The final time is 36 hours. And so I felt really good. I was a little worried because I've had a couple of very small nuisance injuries this year. So I was a little worried about that. But everything just came together that day. It wasn't fast, but it's not a fast course. So.
Well, I think, at the end of the day, everybody does these for different reasons. And the objective is finish, and then you have your time goals. Right?
And have fun. I want to enjoy what I'm doing all the time.
And it looked like you did.
I did. Yeah. I had a couple of that last big climb with Sarah pacing me up that hill, there were a couple of moments of dizziness. I think the sun was messing with my tired eyes coming through the trees. Probably maybe had something to do with food, needing more calories. But overall, yeah, I felt really good the entire time.
And you were able to pick up pacers, around mile? You picked
56.
up pacers around 56. Yes. On the course, it's Upper Payette Lake, which is mile 54 on their chart. But as we know, the mile was a little off. So you picked up your first pacer at 56, and that was Kim.
And Haslam went through the night with me.
And that went pretty well.
Yeah, she's awesome. Kim keeps your mind busy. She likes to ask you lots of questions. So we talked about everything.
And then you mentioned before, but Sarah, so you went with Kim for a ways, 14 miles, 15 miles?
A little more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, and then you picked up Sarah, and she took you through the night and early mornings.
A cold morning.
And that's when, do you think that was your hardest part of that race?
I think it was, I don't even think it was the cold morning. I think it was that climb.
The climb
when the sun started coming out again.
And that was the one after the morning, right? When you
after I
up.
Saw you, yeah.
Because you're hitting that late. You're hitting that 85 miles in, and it's a 3,000 or plus climb after that.
Yeah.
And then you picked up your final pacer. We had a little switch out there, and I was fortunate enough to go the last 6 or so with you through that last aid station. And that's when I got another look at the course, and like you said, it's pretty.
It's
stunning.
Just neat. The entire course is stunning, and the fall colors are beautiful.
And it's near the end of the race. But, I mean, overall for this one, your 700, do you think you felt the best from start to finish in this one compared to your others?
I would actually say, yeah, like physically, mentally, emotionally, all the boxes were marked, checked.
I think one of the unique things you said, which has stuck with me, is after the race was over, the next day even, you're like, I feel really good. I mean, I'm sore because you just did something hard, but it wasn't like, you had X, Y, and Z sharp pain or dull pain or injury, or it was just like you felt like you ran 100 miles,
right?
That thing. And I think that is a testament to a good race, right? I mean, not that you can't come through and say, oh, I jacked up my leg and still had a good race, but 2 weeks later you ran another event.
Yeah.
So I think that was. Do you think there's a reason for you feeling the way you did after the race? Like, was it from train? Because you said you went into it kind of injured, or months before injured. But I think because your body had a chance to heal,
right? Not
just your injury, but everything else was like, oh, cool, I get a break for a little while to work things out. Because that's the first time you've gone into the race where you've missed a little time, right?
I've never battled injuries at all. And back in June, I had a very slight calf tear, and then I had the shin thing back in August. So yeah, I think I was forced to make my body rest, which was hard. But
and it seems like it probably paid off, though.
I think it did. And I also went into this one, like, I just needed to know the cutoff times. I'm not a fast runner. I just knew I wanted to finish this race. And I think taking that pressure off, too, I had a blast.
And we talk about that a lot on the podcast, is like expectations going in. If you know a course or have run it before, like your expectations are different because you know what to expect. But there's really not where, we both looked a little bit from historical data from IMTUF, and it's hard to find. Not only that, but with the course distances, the course distance mileage is different. The course has changed a few times over the years.
There's no GPX file to download.
Yeah, well, and I went back to their site, and I guess there was a new one on the Facebook under files.
So I went there, and I never could figure it
out. But I think that's the other thing, is like when you do something that's maybe more, let's say a Wasatch, a Bear, a Hard Rock, a Western, where there's just so much data, right, to know what your split could or should be, or it's something, there's so much information out there. I think sometimes it gets to you, like there's information overload, but when you're going into something maybe, not blind, because there is information out there, it's not a first year event, that can play into your, okay, well, let's go see how it goes.
Well, and also, like, even though I'm not a fast runner, I still have that competitive mindset.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, it helps not knowing a bunch of other people to compare myself to, that I see or I run with, or I follow them on Strava, just going out and just doing my own thing. took a little bit of pressure off for me.
Yeah. Well, you didn't look like you had pressure. I was able to crew and hit all the aid stations that were allowable, which is one of my favorite things. I love crewing just because you get to see a multitude of people come in with different backgrounds and stories and histories and challenges, and you get to talk to their crew, and especially when you get locked in with that group, right? Like so long, it's like, hey, well, my runner's been with these runners most of the day, so I've been with their crew most of the day, right? And I think that's a lot of fun with it. Would you run IMTUF again, as you said?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Next year?
Well, I might be crewing it next year, so TBD.
To be determined.
Probably not next year, but maybe I have other plans.
Yeah.
So,
but you've done 700s. You've done Salt Flats. You've done Bighorn. You've done Wasatch.
Right.
You've done the Buffalo Run.
Twice.
And you've done Bryce.
Right.
And you've done IMTUF.
Yes.
What's your favorite as of right now? If you had to pick one, not for any other reason, but like that course is awesome.
It's a tie probably between, well, I would say Bighorn or IMTUF.
Okay.
But I think IMTUF would probably just
Win.
barely win. Yeah.
Okay. Why?
It's just, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
It really, every moment you'd come up over a ridge or up, you'd get to the top of a climb and you look around and there's lakes all over. The pine trees were phenomenal. The colors, it kind of, a lot of the course reminded me of kind of our Brighton area where it's those, I don't know what you call them, but the big giant boulders that are really rough and runnable. You can move on them. Yeah. There was a lot of that, but it's beautiful. I would live there.
And McCall has history of fires because of where they're located, and even days before the event, they had some smoke in the mountains. But the 2 days of the race, it was like gone.
We couldn't have asked for better conditions between temperatures and the smoke that's everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it never got too hot.
No.
I mean, again, for the area, we don't know, but I mean, just what we're used to. It never got too hot and really not too cold, even though there were moments.
If it were any colder, I would have been putting pants on. But
wow, that's something else.
Yeah. Sarah asked me several times, "Are you sure you don't want to put your pants on?" Yeah.
You usually tell me that before I leave the house.
Somebody else to remind you.
Just on a normal day about putting pants on. So what are your future plans? What else do you think you have kind of lingering around that you care to share?
Well, I have signed up for Orcas 100 in Washington in February.
Orcas Island 100.
So that will be an exciting one. I'm looking forward to that one. And then I have 2 more that I'm planning to do next year in addition to that, if I can get registered.
Nice. So, and are you going to share those, or are you going to keep them
yeah,
close
no,
to you?
Bighorn and then the Bear. I've got
Bighorn
to go
and the
finish
Bear. So 300s. And if all goes to plan, the Bear will be your 10th.
Right. Redemption.
I think that'd be a good one. Redemption.
Yeah.
The Redemption
The one
Bear.
that I didn't finish.
The Redemption Bear. I like that.
Yeah.
And I thought it was fun too. We were out on the course and you came up to me at one of the early aid stations. You said, "Hey, Josh told me to tell you hi." And I'm looking at you like, okay, I know like a few and none of them live here. So I'm like, "Josh who?" And right when I said that, Josh came on my shoulder and he's like, "Hey man." So we started talking to our friend Josh, who we saw at Bighorn a few years back. Just a great guy. And I started chatting with him about another race I was thinking about in Bighorn, and he's like, "Dude, Bighorn's better. You're gonna like Bighorn better." And I've DNF'd to Bighorn, but he's like, "Oh yeah, you gotta do." So I'm like, I took that as a sign. So Josh, I took it as a sign. So I'm gonna sign up for Bighorn next year.
So we'll both be out there.
Yeah, and so which makes it interesting because that means I'm not crewing you and you're not crewing me.
And we're not racing one another.
No, heavens no. Yeah, but I mean now we don't have each other to crew or pace. So and it's
I'm excited. I'm gonna do that one solo.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, me too now. Yeah. But Sheridan. So we'll be back at Bighorn. Working your 7th. You got your 700 under your belt. What's your preferred or your favorite racing distance? Like, you've done 100s, you've done 50s, you've done marathons, you've done 50Ks, 100Ks, all this stuff. 5Ks, 401Ks. You've done them all. Like, what's your favorite race distance?
I actually think it's the 100s.
Is it?
Just because I enjoy, we love Albuquerque, which is a 50K. It's such a fun race, but I like the 100s because I do run quite a bit on just normal. And so that's my really hard thing.
Your 100 milers. Mm-hmm. Do you want to do anything other than 100 miler next year?
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque, because you want.
I want the stick.
So, and the fun, okay, so here's the thing. El Vaquero, after 5 years of running it, you get a ginormous belt buckle. After 10 years, you get the stick. You've run it twice, so you're skipping. You're focused on the stick, the staff.
I'm just,
the
if I do it
staff.
from now to the stick year, that'll be my 50th birthday year. I mean, what better thing to get than a walking stick on your 50th birthday year?
So what would you have to say to Ty right now, knowing that you want that?
Keep it going, Ty. Please keep your race going. We will be there. We'll help you the night before, whatever you need.
basically the next 8 years, the first weekend in August, we're going to be at the El Vaquero is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't have an option to not do it.
So that's shout out to Ty, our friend Ty Draney, the RD there. But it is a fantastic race.
Yeah, it's
and
wonderful.
A lot of people come
it's
back.
Probably my other prettiest course I've ever been on.
And again, I haven't run IMTUF, I haven't run everywhere, but everything I've done, it's my favorite for sure. And I've told people that for years. I think I've got 7 finishes there.
Are you going to go for the stick?
Well, I'm going to be there, but I haven't decided because the last El Vaquero took part of my soul, I think. I think there's some out. I know where it's at.
Well, then you have to go back out and get it.
If it's there, I know exactly where I left some of it. I know
good.
exactly where it was. But this last year was super hot, and I hadn't raced in a while.
But you did it.
I did. I mean, the turnaround, I felt fantastic and I'm like, oh, this is going great. And about 15 steps out of the turnaround, I'm like, oh, I feel like butt.
Because the temperature increased by about 45 degrees.
100 degrees. But yeah, so there's a chance I'll go back for a piece of my soul next year. If not, I'm a great barbecuer of burgers there. But yeah.
Ty, you have a volunteer.
If I don't, maybe. I smelled like beef for like 2 weeks, so I don't know last time I did that. And as I mentioned as well, 2 weeks after your 100-mile race, there's the Northern Utah Trail Fest here in the Ogden area. My organization I work for, the Trails Foundation Northern Utah, and the Goal Foundation put an event on in partnership with Weber County Parks and Rec. So 2 weeks after your 100-miler, you jumped in a 9-hour event.
Yeah.
It's a 3.5-mile loop, about 600 feet of vert, and you did 8 laps.
I did 8 laps.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. 2 weeks after my last 100, pretty sure I didn't do anything close to that. And you podiumed, tied for second.
By default.
Yeah, tied for second. The hand-holding thing. You didn't hold hands, thank God, because that was good.
I would hold her hand. I love Morgan.
Yeah, but you don't hold hands at finish lines, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all we're saying. So, so you're giving IMTUF a high recommendation for anybody
10 out
out
of 10
there.
would do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's it's funny too, is September's such a competitive year for hundreds, like there's so many of them, right? Especially in this area. I mean, that's in Idaho. Obviously we've got a handful here in Utah, Colorado, you've got Run Rabbit Run.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of 100-milers in September. So if you really
not enough days in September to do them all.
Yeah. Unless you're just super stout, unlike me, but well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. While I've got you here, though, we have a couple segments we do through the social medias. Once a week, we do question of the week, where I ask a question, and I get listener comments, and these are pretty fun. And I'm going to get you to reply on a couple of them. So I posted, I said, hey, what excuses have you used to not go on a run? What excuses have you banked if someone asks you and you don't want to go? And what excuses have you heard? This is a funny one from Brian, and it says, my shoe broke. And the only reason I think it's funny is because I saw him at El Vaquero, and my shoe actually did break. Not even halfway through the race, my shoe broke, and so I ran the rest of it with a broken shoe.
Yeah.
But I finished, so that's funny. Joel says air pollution, and that one's legit. Excuses not to run. This one from Brandy's my favorite. Excuses not to run. I just poured this beer. So that's a really good one. Our friend Jim says the ground got in the way of my face. He fell and quit running. So that was his excuse. Don says my knee hurts. And Ben says the run's too early for me. I value my sleep. So those are excuses. What excuses have you heard not to run or used? Have any? What's some good ones?
I have used Barrett as an excuse. Barrett needs a day off, and I just can't hurt his feelings if I go without him.
Yeah. Barrett, your four-legged friend,
Yeah.
People that don't know. How about, pre-race rituals? So this was a good one. I asked, I said, what pre-race rituals or routines, lack of a better word, however you want to say it, do you have before your races? Chris said, making sure my toenails are cut. I'm like,
that's a good
ooh,
one.
that's a really good one. Julie said, shower and shave my legs to keep chafing hazards down to a minimum, which I am going to try shaving my legs next time to see if that helps. Laquita says, 90% of the time we have chicken and waffles. I set my kit out and have a sparkling water after. I've never heard chicken and waffles before in a
I've talked to her. I knew that they did this.
Oh,
I found
really?
this out like last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
And her husband Kirk is the one that was on the show a year ago or so, and he talked about he gets his kit picked out, but it was an outfit, and so we had him change it to kit on the podcast. I gave my outfit. I said we don't have outfits when we run. We have kits. Preston says always pizza. And then Matt said, pretty boring, but I go through drop bags for the millionth time, and I always go to the start line and picture in my mind what is ahead over the next day or two. So that was our friend Matt. And then Jeremy says, I lay my pack and close out for a flat Jeremy pick, complete with bib if I have it. I don't eat anything super spicy. I review the course and aid stations, set and double check my alarm about 200 times, have nightmares about sleeping through the alarm, end up waking up before the alarm. I agree with his something spicy. I stay away from that. Most of the time is my trick, but those are some good pre-race rituals. Do you have any, like the night before, day of, day after?
I was thinking about that as you're reading through these, and I do, if I can, I always like to eat a baked potato the night before. It's kind of my thing. But then as you're reading some of these, I'm like, oh, I do that, and I like clip the toenails.
Yeah.
I do that. I didn't realize I do that, but I do that. And I obsessively go through my things multiple times
just to make sure.
And then I also agree with the person that wakes up before the alarm is supposed to go off.
Unless you're running Beaverhead, because you have to get up at like 1:30.
Then you just don't even go to sleep, really.
Yeah, you hit the bus at 2. And then the last question of the week, this is a few weeks in total. Final few miles of your race. So I asked this question as I was finishing IMTUF with you. I videoed, and I says, when you're finishing your big race, not necessarily 100, when you're finishing your race, I don't get half marathon, 5K, any race you finish, what goes through your mind just that last little bit?
I cannot wait to get my shoes off.
That's what you actually commented on this one.
Did I? Okay.
You said, excited to get my shoes off, number 1. Number 2, macaroni or French fries. And number 3, I'm ready for that Ninja versus Unicorn. We had Aaron. What goes through Aaron's mind is he said, the faster I run, the faster I'm done. Brittany had a good one, and it says, what am I going to eat and with what wine? And then the last one was Alex. He says, I feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof.
I love it.
Yeah, so those are the questions, or the questions I asked. Now, one of the fun segments.
I wonder if anybody gets emotional. Do you ever get emotional when you're finishing?
Oh, I have for sure.
I always get emotional.
I remember my third Wasatch 100 was the story for another day, but it's probably still to this day my most memorable experience running in my life. Yeah. Yeah, but and we saw a girl at IMTUF that got emotional finishing. It looked like with her dad, and it makes you emotional.
Well, I don't know if you remember with me that moment. I got like super choked up, and I'm like, all right, just be done. Just get done.
I remember that part. I was there. I remember, and I caught it. Okay, so now we have some Ask TrailManners questions. So I'm going to let you answer some of these as well. Okay, so the first one comes from Jonah. Jonah says, I'd like to know, when you're in the middle of an ultra, hitting a wall with several miles left to go, what is it that you tell yourself to keep one foot in front of the other? As someone who's never done more than a half marathon, it seems like finishing something like an ultra is mental after a certain amount of training, but I'd love your thoughts. So I'm going to let you go first. Like, in the middle of an ultra, you hit a wall, or any point in an ultra, what do you tell yourself to keep you going?
This is going to sound really ridiculously cheesy, but I always know you're going to be there, and that's like actually what keeps me going. There's been a few low moments in races where I know that you're at that next point, and it makes me keep going.
That's kind of interesting, because I'm there because I'm hoping you come in. So it works out good.
Mutually beneficial.
But it's a great question. And Joan, it is. There's so much of it that's mental. I had the fortune of pacing somebody at the Bear 100 just recently. And what kept them going was their son. Their son was excited to see him finish. And so that's what he kept telling himself. What gets me going, it depends on the race and probably the time of my life, because I've had different things come through, like the story I just talked about a minute ago. But I think a lot of people, and this might come up in another question, I think you hear it a lot, and again, cliche, whatever, but what's your why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you there, right? Are you there to, fit in? Are you there for Instagram? Are you there for a reason? And I think that sometimes you dig to that reason, and sometimes that you draw that from family. Sometimes, I like to tell people the race is your celebration of all your work. The race is the easy part. You've worked your butt off. You've got up early. You've put in the miles in bad weather. You've reshuffled your schedule. You've pulled away from your families. It's so selfish. So for me, you're celebrating everything you put into it. So going back and thinking, God, I worked my ass off to be here. And then lastly, as a DNFer, which I will proudly wear, if it's not a bad injury, because that's definitely a different level, but sometimes you're like, hey, this pain would go away, this unpleasantness, because you go through these ups and downs. And I tell people all the time, the results live on the internet forever.
We'll just sign up.
Yeah.
Have something.
Yep.
This made me think, I think it's important too. It's not just on your race day, but if you're having a hard training run, or you just really don't feel like going, sometimes it's very helpful just to make yourself go, because that's part of your training, right? Learning how to be out there on the race day and work through a really hard moment. So I know I had one of those with you this year, and you're like, we can go back. I'm like, no, we should probably keep going, because this sucks, and I need to figure out how to work through the suck.
Yeah.
So.
And even though I kept going, I was probably secretly going, yeah, let's go back.
Will you please just stop?
So that's a good question, Jonah. And I think, again, finding your why are you there? I think that helps. Next question comes from Tim. Tim says, what's a recommendations for a first 100-miler? And this is always a tough answer, no matter if it's a 50, 50K, 100K, half marathon, 5K. What do you like, right? Because there's say a 100-miler, right? You've got stuff like Salt Flats. You've got stuff like a Buffalo Run, maybe a little flatter, but then you've got, my first 100 was the Wasatch 100 in 2011, right? So and depends on what you like, but for me, I'd always look for courses that I'm going to enjoy, right? Like the views and everything. So it's not about the name of the race, it's about what the race is. So that's a tough one. So I think if you like to run, something fast, locally here and I know Tim's around here, Buffalo Run 100, it's a 250-mile loop. So sometimes that people don't like that. But we're
then you know what you're going to get too.
You do. And in Utah, most of our hundreds got some vert in them, but then you have the Salt Flats, which might have negative vert because it's just a
doesn't. It's
dirt
not
road.
Flat.
It's not flat.
Yeah.
But then you have, Davies Race, Pony Express, something like that. So I think for a first 100, they're all hard. So people always say, oh, did you run a hard 100? I'm like, they're all hard.
Every 100.
So if you're going to pick one, I think your first one should still be hard. I think it should be, like they say, it's an entry-level 100 or entry-level. I think you should just go for it, man. Right? Just go for it. Like I said, my first 100 was a Wasatch, but in 2011, we didn't have all the 100s we have now. But if there's a race that you're looking at, obviously you can't do a Western or, well, you could, I guess, 100Ks, but maybe not a hard rock. But what do you like? Do that because you're going to enjoy it even if it sucks physically. So what do you recommend?
No, I think actually you explained that well. I mean, it depends if you're more of a runner, if you're transitioning even into the trail running world from road running, the ones on the island are wonderful because there isn't all of the climbing, but then you have the Bear who it's hard, but it's a good first one too, I think. So it just depends. I agree. Find something that you're going to enjoy and have fun with it because none of us are professionals. And so just have fun, enjoy it.
And that's why I'm looking at races next year in the Northwest more because I love the Northwest, right? And it's just pretty. So there's races I'm looking at that are more there and not necessarily in Utah. Yeah. Not that I don't like Utah, but I'm like, I want to, churn back in and love where I'm at.
Yeah.
Next question. I'm going to let you answer this one because I didn't run. Debbie says, what is your favorite thing about IMTUF? And then the next question to that is, which part of the course is your favorite?
Oh my gosh. Again, that course, stunning, all of it. I did love climbing over the Jug Mountain, all those boulders. Oh, that was so fun. It was interesting because here in Utah, we have several areas. that you can go to do that. I noticed that there were some people that were very uncomfortable with that, but then I got to talking to them, and they were from Virginia, so he probably doesn't climb boulders very often. I also loved the goats. I'm not gonna lie, The goats were a highlight. I got a picture with Mario. He was super cute. The colors. I love IMTUF. I need a shirt that just says I love IMTUF.
I'm sure you can. I heart one, just like I heart New York.
IMTUF.
Well, and I think again, not running it. I've paced it twice now. Been up there twice. My favorite thing, even though I didn't run it, was just the area.
Yeah.
Obviously, and I think again, I think it's an easier race if you have friends or family. It's not so taxing, and I think that you can go back and sleep. You're not just always in your car trying to get to the next aid station, have a 4-hour drive. I mean, so for me, I think, we were talking to somebody else about this. I'm like, if you have a family or this is a great one for that.
Well, even talking about the crewing, you get your runner started and then you can't even see them again until mile 31-ish. Mm-hmm. And that's only 10 to 15 minutes from town.
Yep.
And then the next point's at another 6 miles in, and that's also another 10, 15 minutes from town. So you're not just stuck hanging out in parking lots.
And before I forget, I want to give a shout out. I don't do
to
this.
McCall, Idaho.
Salmon River Brewing Company. We went the night before the race,
Yeah.
and I got a cool hat. I love breweries. I got a super cool camo hat, patch. Awesome. Didn't even wear it. We drove home. It was in the car. I don't know where it went. We got home. It was. I swear it was in the car when we pulled in.
It was on the dash.
Haven't seen it since. It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I emailed them and said, hey, I went online. I want to buy this hat again. I lost it, but it's not online. Is there a way I can buy it? They sent me a thing today. So, we're just going to send you one for free. So Salmon River, if anybody goes to McCall, just go there. That's my pitch. That's fantastic.
And it was actually really good. And their menu is very something for everybody.
And the view's gorgeous.
You're on the water.
Yeah, can't beat it. So that's my shout. Okay, next question. Angela Butcher says, what's your favorite beer to drink post-race? My personal favorite's Coors Light, but I'm always looking for new recommendations. So first, Angela, you're actually not having a beer post-race if you're drinking Coors Light, so I'm glad you're stepping up your game to a beer. It depends to me. So Sarah's like, we had this, that's why I kind of waited, is the Ninja Unicorn's her thing. Mine sometimes depend on the time of year of the race. If it's, colder months, sometimes I don't, I like a heavier maybe beer. If it's midsummer, it's going to be a crisp IPA, but also depends on the beer I'm into at that time. But you can't go wrong with Mother Earth, Lumberbeard. And again, you're with Ninja Unicorn almost all the time. A PBR is solid during a race. So that's my recommendation. So yeah, Angela, Coors Light, that's a good hydrator at an aid station. Put in your flask, as you run, but after a race, you need to celebrate a little bit more. Am I right?
I'm not going to disagree.
Okay, perfect. Last question is from Bonnie. I love this question. I think to me, this is going to be a tough one to answer. Bonnie says, what's the biggest thing you'd like to see change in the trail community / culture? Wanting to constantly improve my ability to be a good human and steward in these spaces, so I'd love to hear from experts like you all. Well, first of all, definitely not an expert. I've been around the ultra and trail community since early 2000s, mid 2000s. And it's such a good question because if we're being honest, this is kind of why I've struggled a little bit with my own running and with the podcast. Trail running is just different, and I'm not saying it's bad, but everybody does it for different reasons. But people remind me of the podcast I did with Rock Horton early on. It was like podcast 50, and obviously we're at 330 now, but he kind of was losing his love for trail running, and Rock is a legend with a capital L-E-G, hard rock and everything. And the reason he got back into it, because he didn't like the way the sport was going. It wasn't maybe as in love with it as he used to be because of the way things were. And people were calling him saying, well, then come get back in and, show people, tell people why, or, just be that positive impact on what you think. And that's why he came on my podcast. He wasn't going to come on at all. And so that's kind of where I feel like I'm at right now, is I love this sport. It's given me my best friends in the world. It's given me a lot mentally, physically, my family. It's shown my kids. Obviously, you and I have met, and trail running is a big part of our lives. I think it's a really hard question just because the sport has changed so much, and depends on who you talk to, it's good or bad. And I'm not going to say it's good or bad. It's just, for me, the reason I got into it and loved it, it's not the same now. And a lot of it is the culture. I think it used to be a lot simpler. I was there before social media really took off, and I just sometimes have to pull myself away from that because I see people, I don't know what their why is, right? And that's why I go back to that, is like, why are they out there? Are they out there for follows? Are they out there for sympathy? Are they out there for street cred, whatever? Or are they out there because it's something that they do truly enjoy? And could they go 2 weeks without posting something about trail running and still trail run? You know what I mean? And we see a lot of it, with like ambassadorships, and we're, as I'm talking, I'm very much been a part of this. We had people like talk to me and Joel and said, well, you guys are kind of, out there too and growing the sport, which we definitely wouldn't ever say we did, but we tried to come at it as, fun and, a reason why we did it. And I think the other thing for me is, like, if Strava went away, what would happen? If I wasn't the local legend, if I wasn't the king of the mountain, the queen of if I didn't have these things, comparing myself all the time, would we have a tighter culture? I've been a part of some really fun run groups back in the day, the Happy Utah Mountain Runners, and we just enjoyed our culture and our vibe and supporting each other at races. And I know that's still there for sure. I know that's still there, but I think that's a really tough one, Bonnie, just because I don't know if I'd want to see anything change. I guess what I'd like to see is just more, I don't know, simpler times maybe. Everybody talks about the UTMBs blowing up, and, Aravaipa is doing a lot of things. So there's a lot of live streaming, which people like, but there's a lot of people that don't. But that's the beauty of at least races, is you can find a Nova Caro that's super old school, or you can go to a Western States type event that's live stream and tons of media and all that stuff, right? You can choose that still. But I love what you said of, how can I improve your ability to be a good human? And I think that's where you nailed it, Bonnie, is if you're a good human, I think that's the biggest piece, right? Is just being a good human and steward on the trail, positive. We saw a big blow up even through COVID, not just with the racing and stuff, but just more people on the trails in general. But that's a podcast series on itself, which we're going to bring a few people on, Bonnie, to talk about the changes they've seen that have been there longer, way before me. What do you think? That's a tough one, right?
That's a big question.
It is, and it's super to the core, really.
Well, and everybody's going to have a different perspective.
Yep,
on
absolutely.
It. And the way of the world is different now than it was 10 years ago. So that you can't go backwards.
Yep.
But I just be a good human, and it's contagious, right? It'll rub off on others.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think also just embracing that simplicity sometimes is important. I mean, you go to the mountains for the simplicity, so keeping it simple occasionally even might help.
Yeah. But yeah, we will have some follow-up shows in regards to that with some, we'll call them old school OGs in the trail world. That's a great question. Like I said, I don't think you can say it's right or wrong. I think it's changed just like anything. Styles change in anything. You got chat now out there, chat GBTPQ,
Chat
whatever.
GPT.
That one.
Otherwise known as Chad in my world.
Okay. So you got that out there. So anyway, every week we post a question. Every week we have a TrailManners ask. It's through the social media. So if you want to reach out, it's trailmanners@gmail.com for those. We still doing our Woody Footies, Woody Footy winners. We got some hats still available. Merch is on there. Even in the show notes, we're still friends with Path Projects and Squirrels and Nut Butter. You can go get a discount from them. They're always great. But also, just reach out to us, trailmanners@gmail.com, about topics, guests, what you want to hear. We're back. We've got a great lineup. We've got 2 months worth of shows coming out here for sure, locked in with some amazing guests. We got some 100-mile runners we're going to cover since we're leaving that season. And of course, everybody looks forward to our Christmas gift guides, and those are going to be hot this year. So make sure you pay attention to that. But yeah, again, thanks for listening to Trail Manners podcast. Thanks for reaching out and seeing people at different events. So someone at the Bear saying, hey, I've been listening to your past podcast. You're coming out again. I said, rumor has it there's something in the works. So I love it. It's what we do. Before we leave, though, we're going to have just 6 random questions for our guests. We call it the lightning round. We're going to keep it simple, just like we talked about. 6 questions. Just first thing that comes to your mind is all you have to do. Running or racing superstitions.
Right sock first, left sock second.
What about shoes? Same thing?
Same.
Okay. Bucket list race / adventure you still need or want to do.
Teton Cirque.
Current go-to trail running shoe.
The Mafati.
Favorite 2-legged person.
You.
Yes. What was the first ultra you ever ran?
Oh, good question. It was up in Cedro Woolley, Washington. I cannot remember the name of it.
Can you say this place again?
A Cedro Woolley.
Cedro Woolley.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's southwest east of Bellingham up towards Mount Baker, but I cannot remember the name of it. It was a 50K and it came in second.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Last question before we sign off. What's your favorite part of trail running?
So many things. The mountains, my dog, you, my friends that I've made from it, the solitude, the mountain lions, the mooses, not the snakes though, the adventures.
Nice. Well, that's it for the Trail Manners podcast. Don't forget, share us with your friends. Give us a review or rating on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook. Check us out on Instagram and reach out to us, trailmanners@gmail.com. What do you want to hear? Who do you want to hear on the show? Topics. Let us know. We're here for you. It's great to be back. It is October 15th, 2024. I'm Eric Manning. This is a Trail Manners podcast. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on. Congratulations with IMTUF. Well, I'm sure we'll be back on the show.
Thank you.
Being one of our special guests. Thanks for listening to Trail Manners podcast. Again, my name's Eric Manning, and we are out. Thank you for listening to Trail Manners podcast. I'd like to thank the lovely Sarah Manning for joining us today. I also want to encourage everyone to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. There you can click the donate button or check out our store page for some cool Trail Manners swag. And both donations and purchases sure do help the show. And you can always hit us up on the contact page or email me at trailmanners@gmail.com and let me know what you'd like to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. And don't forget to share us with your friends. And if you could take a minute to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating or review on iTunes or Facebook, I would greatly appreciate it. Don't worry, we have all the links in the show notes. Until next time, this is Eric Manning still reminding you, you don't get what you wish for. You get what you work for. Now go get it.